Drug abuse isn't just a statistic. It's a reality hurting families, destroying potential, and feeding organized crime across the globe. Now, estimates show more than 31 million people suffer from drug use disorders, and that's worldwide, with billions of dollars flowing into the illegal trade.
And for us here in Nigeria, that reality hits very close home. The country has become a major transit point for illicit drugs in West Africa, and our communities are paying the price.
Now, cannabis, cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, codeine, diazepam. The list of commonly abused substances is growing, and the impact is devastating. From health complications to increased crime, it's a crisis that demands urgent, sustained action.
Thankfully, we have an agency like the NDLEA leading the fight. In one state alone, Abuja, more than 1.9 million kilograms of illicit drugs were seized and hundreds of suspects arrested. But beyond seizures and stings, there's a deeper story, the social and psychological wounds that need healing.
Now, poverty, peer pressure, porous borders, and a lack of support structures all play a role. It's not just a law enforcement issue, it's a public health emergency. And solving it means combining policy, advocacy, treatment, and prevention.
And so this morning on Good Morning Nigeria, we're bringing this conversation to the front and, of course, center. Nigeria's silent epidemic, the rising use of drugs and trafficking. We'll be speaking with those on the front lines, from law enforcement to psychologists, to understand the challenges and the way forward.
And in the second part of the program, we'll turn to tax reforms. Yes, President Bola Tinubu has just signed 4 new tax bills into law. We'll break down what that means for you and, of course, for me.
Me and Ray John, I welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria. It's a very important Friday, and today's edition is mind-blowing, so you want to stay put. We're live on the network service of the NTA.
And I'm Victor Azo. Thank you very much for starting your day with us. Soon it will be time to flip through the front pages. All right, thanks for staying with us. And up next, it's time for newspaper review.
All right, with joy, I introduce Chukwudi Okolie Ugbaja back on set for newspaper review. Chukwudi, good to see you again this Friday. Good morning to you.
I like the introduction. That's DJ-like.
You know, J-O-Y. She said with joy. That word got to me.
That's DJ-like.
Yeah, Ray. Anytime. Victor,
Welcome, sir.
how you do?
They're fine, no.
Yes.
Jealousy. All right, let's look at what the papers have. We'll begin with the People's Daily this morning. The People's Daily leads with reps want probe of alleged 50 billion naira corruption asset stripping in Nigeria police. All right, so all of that on page 5. Above that, Wike refutes claim of allocating 2,082 hectares Abuja land to SAN. All right, I'm sure you want to hear that again. But pick up a copy to read the details. That's on page 21. Bandits stranded with rustled cattle in Niger after clash with military. That's on page 5. Looking below the picture story now. Tinubu denies NDLEA amendment bill assent, cites transparency concerns. Court adjourns PDP leadership crisis suit until September 22. Governor Bago closes IBBUL over security breaches. All right, that's on page 7. INEC fixes August 16 for by-elections in 12 states. You want to get the details of all of that, page 4 has that for you. And finally, tax reform bills deliver first major pro-people tax cuts in a generation. That's as regards the tax reform bills that were signed by the president. Let's quickly look at what the business NG is offering this morning. The business NG leads with banking sector, now 63% of GDP as assets hit 170 trillion naira despite naira slide. Above that story, just below the masthead, bandits seize Kankara local government area in Katsina, ban farming. Kankara local government in Katsina has been seized by bandits and farming has been banned. That's on page 14 of the business NG. 15.1 billion in 2025, $25 billion by 2030. That's Nigeria pension growth forecast. Money markets rates soar above 32% amid liquidity crunch. Now that's on page 2. And finally, we have NLC threatens shutdown of FCT over prolonged area council strike. All right, Victor.
All right, thank you, Emre. And I have the daily asset here with me. And the lead story reads, President directs comprehensive civil service personnel audit, signs tax reform bills, 3 others into law, rejects NDLEA bill over crime proceeds clause. And that story is on page 4. Just above the nameplate, Cardoso named African Central Banker of the Year is on page 2. And the picture story here details National Emergency Management Agency Enugu Operations Office that in collaboration with the Ebonyi State Emergency Management Agency distributed relief materials in support of households affected by an attack by unknown gunmen in the Nkalaha community. All right. And just below that, Benue attacks. CDS orders clamp down of illegal arms bearers. IGP directs investigation as retired officer rejects 2 million naira pension. You get details of that on page 2. And just on the boxes, tiny boxes to the right, Bago orders immediate closure of IBBUL over security breaches and loss of lives. Page 6. Impossible to discuss cultural impact in Nigerian music without me. That's chest thumping from Terry G, and that's on page 16. Senate holds regional security stakeholders meetings to tackle insecurity. It's on page 22. Ally of Cameroon President 92 quits broken government to challenge him. The details are on page 28. And finally, WAFCON 2024. Super Falcons arrive Casablanca for final preparation. It's on page 31. Chukode.
Ally of Cameroon. How old is the ally?
Well, not from the, at least I wouldn't know that from the...
I thought you said 92.
No, the president himself.
Oh, the president is 92. Otherwise, I was going to say that is a dance of grand old man then, the politics there. Anyway, let me quickly talk about the banks. 170 trillion naira assets. That's a good one. It makes you feel that your money is safe. They wouldn't be so buoyant if there was a threat to the little monies we have there. But at the bottom of it all is how much... Now, this is in spite of the Naira slump. They're doing well. In fact, it's unexpected. Sometimes you can't explain how the Nigerian economy works, particularly when you're not an economist like me. The point I want to make is, you are announcing these assets. We are heralding these assets. But how much does the Nigerian bank, I'm talking about a symbolic bank now, contribute to productivity or production within the Nigerian, economic space? Where are the monies coming from? If it's from all these jemu charges and all that, I know government gets some of it, but the banks do get some as well. It is not productive. It is just helping them pile up notes. What is going to matter to us, finally, is how much you can ask that boy that left the university about 3 years ago and is still looking for a job, get a loan that has a tenor of, let's say, about 4 or 5 years. You don't drive him into a panic about repayment when he has not set up yet.
Low interest rate, of course.
A low interest, and of course, you are going to help him also, give him advisory, play an advisory role as to how to grow that economy.
Exactly.
Only then, that business, only then would you become very relevant to the growth of Nigeria and Nigerians. I think the banks, fine, we are happy for them. I think they need to become more relevant to real growth in the Nigerian economy. That's my take on that. Did you say that somebody said, yes, on Wike gave his son 2,082 hectares?
Yes. 2,000
Did you say somebody said
82.
It is, no. As far as I'm concerned, it's gossip. Because, first of all, I don't know what anyone is going to do with 2,082 hectares. 1 hectare is how many plots now? About 10.
About 10 plots.
10. Then you multiply 10 by 2,082. How many campuses are you building there and all that? But mind you, it's an allegation.
But you know what they say about every rumor?
Every
Allegation, anything that, comes to limelight.
no smoke without a fire somewhere.
Right.
Well, it was a minister the other day. You have to be fair to Wike. You have to be fair to anybody who gets accused, and it has not been proved yet. A minister said, before he stepped in here, he said, any man who wants to hurt you will find a reason. Any man who wants to hurt you will find a reason. So we could say there's no smoke without fire, but it could also be that somebody is trying to give somebody a bad name. Till we have investigated, particularly talking as journalists,
Exactly.
we never ever, take it with a pinch of salt. That said, the president is directing a comprehensive civil service personnel audit. Before you would say quickly, it's not just the civil service. I don't know whether it is need that drives action in Nigeria or greed. Don't be surprised that they're going to find some ghost workers. Don't be surprised that you're going to find a lot of hanky-panky somewhere. It has become the way we think.
People who should have retired still in service.
That's it. I'm not talking about people like me. I left about 9 years ago. The question you want to ask is there any segment of this country that does not carry one kind of odium or another in terms of corruption, in terms of lack of transparency? And if there isn't, has it become our culture? How would we come out of this quagmire we have put ourselves in? The other day, somebody said, those who are complaining about corruption are those who don't have relatives who help them get some of the national cake. He said, that's the way we are now. So it's not just the politicians only. I was telling somebody whom I gave something to do on the farm, and he did a few things, and I said, and you're here blaming government. See what you have done. He said, Oga, no, they get the money. They think we are part of the, we want to take through you too. So it's become a way we think, and that does not grow a country. So let them carry out the audit, save money for capital development, capital funds, free up money for development that will benefit a lot of Nigerians, because they're going to find out a few things there. I want to think so. That's it. Okay?
Bandit sees local government in Katsina ban farming.
I think we should stop.
A whole local government.
I think we should stop saying that Nigeria is so vast to be effectively policed by the number of booths we have now. There are certain things that should not happen. A whole local government. That means they are territorially territorial. You can see them occupy the space. So what is so difficult about getting them off the place there. They are running the place.
Why are you surprised? It's not the first time. Time was when bandits, or is it Boko Haram, that seized several local governments.
Yes, I know. But it shouldn't be. Not in a sovereign like Nigeria.
When you say a hole, we are not talking about just a hole. We're talking about several a-holes, if you like.
Well, we're talking about the...
I'm just saying with this renewed
talking
drive,
about...
I mean, the local governments that were seized were, at least in the past. But I mean, with the new statements we're hearing...
There should be improvement in the scale, isn't it? We should not be hearing that a local government has fallen to bandits. It should be skirmishes bandits have with the security men, hit and run, ambush-style attacks and all that. Not that they occupy space that you see that they really occupy that space. Something is wrong with policing.
Indeed. Well, we have to release you so that nothing will be wrong with us here. Your time is up, but we appreciate your time.
Was I showing the signs of pugilism?
What's going to be wrong with you again on Monday?
Our producer could get us arrested or something.
All right. Thank you for staying with us. Good Morning Nigeria continues right after this break. Please don't go away.
All right, welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. We have our guests seated with us, but just before we introduce them to you, let's quickly take this background report put together by Ibrahim Bello Gunda.
The United Nations says the impact of drugs is far-reaching and complex, from individuals struggling with substance use disorder to communities grappling with the consequences of drug trafficking and organized crime. Nigeria is significantly affected by the challenges of drug abuse and illicit trafficking. According to the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, an estimated 14 million Nigerians are involved in the use and addiction of hard drugs. The scale of illicit drug trafficking and consumption in the country is reflected in the frequent report of arrest and interception of large quantities of narcotics by National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, and other sister security agencies. In 2024, the NDLEA reported that it arrested 52,901 suspected drug traffickers, including 48 barons, and secured over 9,000 convictions within 3 years, with the agency confiscating more than 7.6 million kilograms of illicit substances, including cocaine, heroin, and cannabis, among others. Despite these efforts, manufacturers and traffickers, driven by profit and the high demand for psychoactive substances among addicts, continually devise new ways to evade detection. The illicit psychoactive drug market is a multi-billion-dollar industry that grows each year, with the market fueled by corruption and porous border exploited by manufacturers and traffickers. What is fueling the drug abuse challenges in Nigeria? What are the consequences of having a drug-infiltrated society? And what role should Nigerians play for a drug-free nation that is safe for present and generation unborn? These and more are some of the questions guests on Good Morning Nigeria will find answers to on the program.
All right, many thanks, Ibrahim Bello Gunda, for that background report. And joining us here in the studio to open this critical conversation is Femi Babafemi. He is Director of Media and Advocacy at the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA. Pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning indeed.
All right, also joining us here in the studio is Chuks Akamadu, a lawyer and president of the Center for Ethical Rebirth among Nigerian Youths, Serani. It's a pleasure to welcome you again to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here again.
All right, it's also a pleasure to welcome Godwin Alechenu, General Manager and Clinical Psychologist at Vigada Rehabilitation Center right here in Abuja. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's begin the conversation, and I'd like to start with Femi for obvious reasons. Anyway, every week we hear stories of seizures, the way it is done. We applaud the intelligence and all that, but this has not stopped people from trying anyway. Why does it persist, drug trafficking, that is?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Indeed, if we have to look at all the seizures, all the arrests, all the convictions made by the agency in the last couple of months. Indeed, by now, we should think that, and indeed, even the sensitization, the awareness creation, all of the things we have been doing across the country in partnership with a wide range of stakeholders, talking of civil society organizations, faith-based organizations, community-based organizations all across the country. So by now you should think that indeed this problem would have been abated or drastically reduced. But then, like the last report said, why? And then, so we have to look at what are those causative factors? What are the things driving people into engaging in substance abuse? What are the things driving people into trafficking itself, into the desperation to get involved in all of these things? Because if I track a lot of comments online, Nigerians asking, even when you arrest these people, they are, I mean, this information is out there and these people still try to do this. So definitely there must be certain factors driving them. And so those are the factors especially, and I'm glad that Mr. President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, indeed in his keynote address at the World Drug Day grand finale ceremony yesterday at the Villa, did hit one key point, and that's the fact that this whole effort should not be left to government alone. This should not be a movement across the country. Movement that is where everybody has to take ownership of this whole effort, because especially starting from the homes, which, I mean, the family unit, which is the smallest unit of the society. I mean, so because first you have to look at people's upbringing, whether you talk of those going into substance abuse or even those involved in the trafficking of illicit substances, they came from homes. They didn't drop from the sky. So what are their upbringing like? Then what are the values instilled in them, in their upbringing? You have to look at that environment first, and quite a lot of factors are responsible for that right from the home before we move to
But apart from the home, now we are talking, I agree, family is the smallest nucleus of society, so it plays a vital role. We all came from families, so that's how society is made. But to what extent is our geography, our border governance or management, and regional security a part of all of this?
That's why, as I said, there are quite a lot of causative factors. We just picked one yet. I mean, you just mentioned the others. For instance, if you look at talking about geography, geographical location, and that is where the country is placed, and our population, all of these are targets for. Don't forget that this is not something peculiar or limited to Nigeria. This is an international thing. This is a global menace. It's a global scourge. And so the international cartels driving the market, driving this whole thing, they are out there with billions of dollars. That's why I think your report did say that it's indeed a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so the forces driving them, they are out there. And that's why we not just, for instance, the NDLA is not just galvanizing and mobilizing efforts and resources within the country. We are also looking at connecting with all the various international forces, talking of the source nations where these things are coming from. I mean, the last MOU that we signed was with Brazil. The Brazilian authorities, which was just this week at the Villa, when the high-power delegation from Brazil visited Nigeria, led by the Vice President of Brazil. And if you look at most of the cocaine seizures that have been made, they came through Brazil. And I remember in our engagement with the Director Public International Cooperation of the Brazilian Police, when we had an engagement with him after the signing of the MOU, where he came into our office just to deliberate on how to, on the implementation of the MOU, he indeed said, even these things coming from Brazil, they are not grown or processed in Brazil itself. They come through Peru and Bolivia, That's where the bulk of the cocaine. While Brazil itself is also a transit because of its ports. Do you understand? So, but now what we're doing is to strengthen our relationship, our ties with them, to ensure that anything, any ship, any flight coming from that place, just as we do here. That's why the NDLA, I mean, it's extremely difficult for anybody to pass through airports now with anything, whether you swallow it, whether you conceal it in any part of your body or in any part of your luggage or whatever. We have the intelligence drive, we have the technological tools to detect all of those things. So as much as we are protecting other jurisdictions from this culture, so we also expect those sources, those places where these things come also to do their own bit, while as much as possible we also open our eyes very wide and ensure that these things don't enter our country. But then don't forget, I think you did mention that we have quite a lot of porous borders. But because of this, that's why in the recent report by the BBC, apart from cannabis, the next most abused illicit substances in Nigeria is the opioid, especially tramadol and codeine-based syrup. And in a recent report done by the BBC, which was actually conducted in India, where most of the opioids also come from, indeed, one of the companies shipping those things into Nigeria told the BBC undercover that, yes, we are ready to produce these drugs for you to ship, but then it's difficult for us to ship into Nigeria because the NDLA will detect and they will seize it. But what we can do is we ship to the neighboring country, any of the neighboring countries, and then from there you can now be smuggling them in. It was in that report, and we're glad that indeed even the manufacturers, the producers themselves acknowledge the fact that it's difficult to ship those things directly to Nigeria because the NDLA will definitely get them, but then they have to devise other means of taking them to our neighboring countries from where they smuggle these things to.
Since you know that they smuggle through neighboring countries, what are you doing about that?
Oh, absolutely. That's why we're also extending our partnership, our relationship with those countries. We've had MOUs with a number of them. We have a very good working relationship with Ghana. We have a very good working relationship with Gambia, Sierra Leone, all of them. We're building those networks also to ensure, apart from the fact that, you see, we have also made quite a lot of seizures at those areas because we have the tools to monitor, to track some of them, quite a number of them who especially take advantage of these night travels, these buses that go to the West African nations, our neighbors, that travel over the night. And so quite a number of them we've grabbed 2 a.m., 3 a.m. when they arrive with those buses. And so those are the way they just go with, just coming with a Ghana must go bag or a traveling bag. A tramadol-filled traveling bag, you know what that can do. You know what the cost, all those things, what the impact on our community. So they just come in light. But then even at that, because we have the means to track some of their movement and their plans. Right. So we still get them at those borders, definitely. But then we cannot sufficiently cover all of those.
Thank you very much.
That must be.
Thank you very much, Femi, for your opening comments. Fantastic. The NDLA is doing a great job. Of course, like Victor mentioned, we hear seizures every week and all of that, but it doesn't change the statistics. I'm trying to get to Barrister Kamadu now. Research shows that 14.4% of Nigerians aged between 15 and 64, that's about 14.3 million people, use psychoactive substance in this country. And that's almost triple the global average of 5.6%. Further statistics shows that 1 in 7 Nigerians in that demographic reportedly use drugs illicitly. I mean, this is a huge number. The number seems to be growing every day. And I know that every year we have this program, we always get guests seated like this, and it looks like this thing is not going away. In your own view, what is fueling drug abuse and trafficking in Nigeria?
Well, first, before I respond to that question directly, I would like to touch on the statistics that you've just shared with us. 14.3 million, 14.3 million Nigerians involved in drug abuse. That's the result of a survey, 2018 survey. We don't have a recent figure. That again shows that we are treating this thing with kid gloves. We still bandy those figures. 14.3 million Nigeria. It leaves a whole lot to be desired. It's 2018 report that puts it at 14.3 million Nigerians. I bet you it's a lot higher.
No.
Yes, and you begin to ask, why are we still referring to a 2018 survey report? I think it's an indictment that we must find the humility to admit on our part that, yes, we are trying, but we're not trying enough. Again, this brings me to Mr. President's declaration yesterday that this fight against drug abuse should be seen and taken as a national movement. That is good. I'm glad that he has recognized that, but I beg to say that we need a louder presidential footfall. That is not loud enough. Anything short of declaring a state of emergency on drug abuse and illicit trafficking in Nigeria, to my mind, would be less than desirable. This menace is caving in. This menace is about swallowing all of us. Unfortunately, like the president alluded to, we seem to think that this thing is within the purview of NDLA, of security agencies alone. That is not true. What we're actually doing as Nigerians is that we are chasing rats when our house is on fire. I have said this repeatedly. If we don't take ownership of this fight against drug abuse, if we don't accept that suddenly we have all become critical stakeholders in this drug abuse fight, then we're going to lose the battle. The reason is simple. We are talking about trafficking. The incentive is that there is so much money to be made. So people are ready to dare the NDLA, they are ready to dare the security agencies, they are ready because that's the incentive. And again, you also look at the fact that they do it because there is a market for it. If you don't,
why is the market growing?
A wide range of factors. A wide range of factors. You just mentioned one. Which is true. Dwindling family values. Of course, that's one. To unemployment. And again, we don't seem to have a comprehensive youth policy that emphasizes the need to preserve the moral health of our youth population. Because when you look at our leaders, they talk about tomorrow and all of that. Those of us who are in the drug demand reduction space, we keep wondering, what future are you talking about? Because day in, day out, our children are finding themselves in the claws of this drug abuse, in the claws of this drug abuse scourge. We should be worried. Take for instance, my point is this. We need to get to a point where, as a lawyer, I expect Nigerian Bar Association, for instance, to say, okay, in addition to the requirement, because for you to be called to bar, you're expected to dine thrice, and then show that that you're fit and proper to be called to bar. You have to dine twice and show that you can actually dine like a gentleman. You can handle cutlery and all of that. If such things should be important, then we need to get to a point where professional bodies like Nigerian Bar Association, which I belong to, should also say that as a prerequisite for one to be called to bar, you have to undergo a drug test. That should be applicable to ICANN. That should be applicable to the Nigerian Society of Engineers, so that there will be enough deterrence. People will now realize that, oh, if I do this, this is going to really constitute a clog in the wheel of my career progress and all of that. So if we don't get to a point where we begin to look at our respective spaces and see how we can complement the commendable effort of security agencies and such as NDLA, NAFDAC, Nigerian Police, and the armed forces, I'm afraid we're still will be.
You didn't add that before you are put on the ballot paper too. You should also be screened.
Oh, no. I just started from my own immediate constituency as a lawyer. But it is important. It is important we get to that point because this thing is really on rampage. And like I said, it's about consuming all of us. It's an existential threat that we should all be worried about. So when we do advocacies and we talk about faith-based organizations and we say traditional institutions and communities and all of that, we should also begin to sensitize even corporate social responsibilities should get to a point where they now, the organized private sector should get to a point where they have to review their corporate social responsibility policies to begin to address, redirect such policies to begin to address such concerns in their host communities.
Chooks, thank you very much. You do a lot of work with the youth, so I'm sure in the course of the program you'll be able to tell us more about what you've observed with them. But let me get to Godwin Alechenu quickly. In your experience as a psychologist, what do you find? Of course, a large number of the statistics points to the youth population. So what do you find as causes, factors that trigger them, how they cope? What exactly is it that you see when you deal with young people particularly and perhaps generally?
Okay, thank you for that question. So first of all, let's understand the concept of addiction, right? Addiction is a brain relapsing disorder that is characterized by the impulsive nature of it and the compulsive nature of it. And so once an individual gets into substance, they don't just depend on the substance immediately. They start from, there are stages to this process. So you have the regular use, you have the experimental use, you have the regular use, then you have the abuse stage, and you also have the dependent stage, that individual experience substance. So when individuals who come in for treatment do not have insight, it becomes a problem for them. Now, you tend to, as a psychologist, understand what are the causative factors for these individuals using substance. And so we have general factors and we have factors that are personalized to these individuals. So as psychologists, we tend to understand what are the personal factors that can actually predispose this individual. So personal factors like family dynamics. Where is this individual coming from? There are family systems that they don't have time for the children. They feel money is the main thing, money is important, and these children prioritize attention over money. And so it becomes a problem for this young person that, oh, I am not enjoying the comfort of my family, I am not enjoying the presence of my family members. And so they want to seek validation outside and also tend to interact with other people. Another factor could be self-identification. A lot of young persons at that formative age tend to test and retest behaviors that they probably think might be right. Why? Because they don't know who they are as a person. And so they use this substance. Like I said, the stages of addiction does not just start from the abuse. It starts from experimenting it. And once they use this substance and they get high and they get the reward, which is the dopamine, that is the reward center.
The reward?
Yeah, the dopamine is the reward center for every pleasurable activity we do. And so the moment you get hooked to this substance, you want to use it. And you have a different perception about yourself and how the world also see you too. The media and other personalities too are one of the factors that can actually influence substance use too. Talking about social media, you find a whole lot of young persons going on social media and they see some other personalities doing this substance and they feel that that's the best way to live life. And they begin to incorporate this into their own lifestyle and makes them different from who they are supposed to be.
Many thanks, Godwin. How do we regulate the social media space? Of course, we know with traditional media, not everything, goes on air, especially when substance has been abused and all of that, like we see in music videos and in movies. But I'd like to get to Femi now. Earlier you spoke about what the NDLA is doing. A lot of people applaud you. But of course, there are people who criticize the NDLA also. Because, we get to hear about a lot of seizures. We don't get to hear about the sentences and, those who, going for their crimes. Is the NDLA ensuring that those who are arrested, are actually brought to book? at the end of the day? Not just them, because we understand that this is like a bigger, it's bigger than we see. So you arrest one person, of course there are other people, it's a cartel, there are barons who are in charge of this. Do you dig? Do you work with security agencies to ensure that you get to the roots of that seizure, where it is emanating from, those involved and all of that? I mean, all of that. Don't you think if you do enough of that, it would deter other people from going into the business?
Thank you, absolutely. I'll tell you for free that indeed the new NDLA does not just stop at the level of arresting mules, traffickers, or even dealers. We build up cases up to, for instance, let me just an immediate example was an arrest made last week. A woman was traveling to India, supposedly for fibroid surgery, and she had, were able to recover 2.2 kilograms of cocaine from concealed in her travel bag. And I'll tell you, within 1 week, we were able to unravel who the baron behind that particular trafficking is. And so far, within the same space, we've been able to identify, let me just say, this is an individual that has his businesses in Sango area of Ogun State, which is a border town with Lagos, that has hotel business there. And he lives far and on the outskirts of Lagos in Ikorodu. I don't know if you know those areas. That's like two extreme ends. So it's usually a very difficult thing for people where he does business to even know where he lives, and the people who are his neighbors where he lives to know where he does his business. But then we were able to connect the dots within a week. So indeed, we don't just stop at the level of, we go after the big, and that's, I'll tell you, you give that to Marwa, the chairman chief executive. Apologies for calling his name just like that. The chairman chief executive of NDLA, he's very particular about that, and he ensures that cases are not ended at the level of the most. Even some take months, years, will still ensure that we go after them.
Give us the statistics this year. How many people have you, sentenced?
As at the end of May, we've had more than 12,000 convictions. More than 12. These are not just. These are not.
And what are the convictions like? Is it you get 6 months or you get plea bargain or something?
Now, that's one of the issues that would have been addressed by the bill, the amendment to the agency's bill,
which
that,
unfortunately has been
they didn't go through due to some other technical issues. But then it's not the end of it. Definitely, I know, because that bill actually addressed the issue of discretionary sentencing by trial judges, that is giving the option of fine, which is actually something that disturbs the agency itself. That's a loophole in the law that that usually exploited. But yeah, and so when you have when you go after individuals for months, taking all the risks and everything, you prosecute them, and then at the end of the day, they are given 10 years, 5 years imprisonment, and you are asked to pay as an option a fine of 3 million naira in lieu of going to jail. So, I mean, people that do billions of business of billions of naira, so it's easy for them. So that's a weak point there, and that's exactly the kind of things we're trying to address in through the bill that didn't go through recently. But I believe it's going to come back with the support of government. But then, even at that, I still tell you that there are quite a lot of sentencing. In fact, recently we've been having life imprisonment, because these people, like Shuk said, I mean, they are driven by greed, they are driven by desperation, and so because they just want to live large at all costs, they don't mind daring, they don't mind taking any risk, and so they go into this. So there are some that we've arrested not only once, not twice. We have arrested them 3 times, especially those that get the option of fine. As soon as they're out of that court,
They go again.
They go again, but unfortunately for a number of them, we've gotten them rearrested, and some of them are in life, are bagging life sentences now. And but then there are quite a number of courts where this is also not considered. It's just that we feel if that particular is taken out, it will tighten the deterrence effect of this whole thing.
Let's talk okay.
I can also add this. One of the things we're also using to address that is to go after their assets, because the thing driving them is they want to enjoy the proceeds. And so we go after, now we don't just arrest them, send them to jail, and seize these illicit substances, but then we also go after all they have acquired. Their properties, their houses, their vehicles, their bank accounts. We've had individuals that we had to take over, freeze over 100 bank accounts linked to an individual. So we go after all of this to ensure that we inflict the maximum pain on them and ensure that because some of them, they don't mind going to jail for 5-10 years as long as those things are intact. They don't mind, even right from the prison.
That's almost like taking a degree and a master's.
Yeah, exactly. So, but now we ensure that we have a full Directorate of Assets and Financial Investigation that does all of that now to ensure that we trace all their assets. Like I told you, the recent case in Lagos, within a week, we're able to link, and more is being done already on that case. We're able to identify the
What do you do with the assets when you seize them?
Oh, we go to court. Because they are forfeited to the federal government. We have because they are process of crime, and there is an act on that. That's POCA, Process of Crime Act. So indeed, we go under that act to ensure that we go after their assets. That's also a very strong deterrent. But then we still believe that this option of fine thing has to go so that these people can get the maximum penalty for.
What are you doing about institutional enablers? I mean, people who abuse responsible office to aid trafficking and abuse.
Definitely, the law is the law. It doesn't. Whoever you may be. I mean, we have. We also have instances where people who do that. I won't want to mention names now, but they are still. Such individuals as the high-profile individuals, especially those that had authorities while they were out there, they are still in prison, facing trial from the prison. And these are high-profile individuals that are known to you and I, known to the public. So, indeed, there are consequences for that, and definitely we don't spare any of such.
All right, Barrister Kamadu, NDLA is trying to deal with the barons and those who traffic, but our concern is also on those who use these substances, because like you've rightly mentioned, we're sitting on a keg of gunpowder. It's going to explode very soon. Our youth population almost gone as a result of drug use. Speak to what we can do as a people, because I'm thinking that if the market reduces, the barons will be put out of business.
Yes,
right?
So
how can we discourage drug use?
Oh, like I said, it requires collective effort. Everybody who is a non-drug user should see themselves as co-fighters on the war front. I also think that drug use and its adverse effects should be introduced in our school curriculum. Young people at their formative stage, oftentimes field experience has shown that they don't necessarily desire to go into it. It is just the fact that it has become fashionable. You now find an otherwise innocent child trying to be like his peers, not because the child thinks there is a benefit to be derived from that thing. So such young people, I think that the society, the adult fraction of our population, owe them a sacred duty to ensure that their eyes are open, that they are sensitized enough to know that even amongst their peers, those who do drugs, there are actually deviants. If they are tagged deviants, I can assure you that the majority of them wouldn't want to walk that path. But because the society has allowed, our school system has allowed such things to go unregulated, to go unmonitored, and all of that, young people have found themselves in a situation where they now say we no longer have a consensus on what is right and what is wrong. That line that separates good from evil is no longer there. It's now blood. So you now find children, because like I said, they are vulnerable. You just find them walking into it, and by the time they experiment with it, they wouldn't know when they become casual users. From being a casual user, they become habitual users. From being habitual users, they now get hooked on that stuff, and then we would have lost them. And then we should also begin to think of the future, because these children we are talking about, have you ever sat back to ask yourself the kind of children that they will give birth to if they are addicts? Because that's really the fear for me. If these children are not taken away from the vice grip of drug abuse and they become parents, because they will become parents tomorrow, then imagine what the society would look like. I mean, we are heading the Columbia way. We should frighten all of us. So like I said, it should be introduced into our school curriculum. Our churches should also find time to include it in our regular sermons. This thing is a reality. Let us stop living in denial. In our mosques, they should find a way of also incorporating it in their sermons, or in their sermons, or whatever they call theirs, and all of that, so that both parents and children are always wearing the consciousness of the dangers of drug abuse. That way, all of us, the thing will begin to, by the time we begin to work in that consciousness, I can assure you, together, we can actually arrest this menace and then possibly reverse the trend.
To what extent, Chooks, to what extent is the social media a problem in all of this? The social media is often awash with glorified portrayals of drug use. How much of a problem is this, and what counter-narrative should we be pushing?
Good. That's a very good question. Like I said, truth is that the average Nigerian youth is a good boy, is a good girl. If you go to secondary schools, you will find that, okay, if you go to one SS1 class now, you will find that you might have like five terrorist boys who are drug users. But because the regulation within the school is weak, they are so prominent. I'm telling you, they're so prominent.
They can win over more people.
They will keep winning people.
Rather than being won over themselves.
40%.
They actually make others look inferior.
Yes. Do you understand? So that's why I call them terrorists. 5 of them will be suppressing the rest, oppressing the other 35. Now, talking about the social media that you just mentioned, the truth is that a vast majority of Nigerians are not drug users. We are good people. We are decent people. We desire decent life and all of that. The question we should be asking ourselves, why have we allowed a tiny minority to oppress us this much? To the extent that what they push out there now appears to be good enough to define us as a people, whereas we are not who they portray. It simply means that we are being docile, those of us who don't do drugs. Yes, and it's also the same thing that is applicable in our national leadership. Because Nigerians are not corrupt people. That I can assure you. But for some reason, our political leadership space has been infiltrated by few people. Because there are few bad eggs, we now tag all of them corrupt. That is not true. So this is a wake-up call to Nigerians. wherever you find yourself, like I said, in our respective little spaces, if you are a car dealer, please, on your signpost, please say, we say no to drugs. Please be counted. Stand out to be counted. We should all find a way of saying this is where we stand on this issue.
All right.
Because most of us are sitting on the line, sitting on the fence, and are being perceived to be on the other side. Let us say, because there's no half measures in this fight at all. Let us be very proactive. Let us be very assertive about it. In whatever we do, let us say Nigerians will stand against drug abuse so that we can defeat this monster.
Defeating this monster, drug abuse. Gordon, I'd like to get to you. Growing up, I mean, it was easy to know someone who was using drugs. They run mad or they misbehave, you know. I mean, it was those were the things that, you know, your parents would tell you, like, don't you see that person now, he's on hemp, that's why he's mad or something. These days, speak to us about how these drugs are behaving, because, you know, you listen to some youths, they tell you, well, we are into what's it called, creative industry, we need it for inspiration and all of that. Speak to us. What are the adverse effects of using drugs? Because I'm wondering why it's becoming a norm if it has side effects.
Okay, so in my own space, we don't call people who are not stable mad, right?
Okay.
So we say they are mentally unstable. Now, we have substance-induced psychosis. Substance-induced psychosis is as a result of using substance. There are individuals that have schizophrenia, and they are presenting symptoms for you to look at someone and say, this person is not stable. And so what are the presenting symptoms? Hallucinations. And you have different types of hallucination: tactile hallucination, olfactory hallucination, visual hallucination, and other types of hallucination. You also have delusion too. The commonest delusion is delusion of grandiosity. Someone telling you, do you know who I am? In as much as we know you're someone, but they tend to like magnify their words. Now, you have hallucination, you have delusion, and you have distorted thought pattern. I am talking to you, and I'm not saying something else. So if there are two presenting symptoms, you can look at an individual and say something is wrong with these individuals. Now, growing up, we are quick to understand that if you use substance will make you unstable mentally. But from the arguments that we've had with recent individuals that have checked in for treatment, they seem not to be on that side too. There are different perceptions to this. Now, not everybody who uses substance gets mentally unstable. And this brings us to the fact that we need to understand individuals and how this substance affects them. There are individuals that substance affects their personal relationship with other people, but it does not affect them mentally. There are individuals that the substance affects them mentally and does not affect other aspects of your life. So you need to understand that individuals varies when it comes to substance use. Like I said earlier, the dopamine is a reward center. And so when you use or you take any addictive, when you engage in any addictive behavior and you get reward from that behavior, the dopamine sends a message and say, oh, I want this. And that is where dependence starts from, because your dopamine is stimulated and he wants more of this. Now, speaking about creativity, I was having a therapy session with someone last week, and he said, look, I'm an artist. My parents don't want me to become an artist. Why? Because I use substance. And when I use substance, it gets me motivated and it makes me feel I am better than this. The substance plays a role in stimulating that individual, but it has its own effects. What are the effects? The individual may not understand the effects. Rather, the individual wants to rationalize or look at the positive side of it and neglect the effects. Now, there are situations that this substance stimulates you and brings you to down zero, but you don't look at it. Now, when it stimulates you to a level that you can't take it again, either you experience the drug-induced psychosis or you begin to experience the negative effect of it. Behaviors are rewarded if that behavior is good, and behavior ought to be punished if that behavior is not good. And so for individuals that uses substance, we try to make them understand that you making informed decision is not because we want to force that decision on you, but we are trying to point out those factors that can actually predispose you to using that substance. And it takes us to the 4 P's of substance use. You have the predisposing factor. The predisposing factor is that factor that can actually predispose or lure that individual into using that substance and even want to continue using it. Say you have friends that you use substance together. You want to continue using the substance when you find yourself in that circle of friends. You have the protective factor. I asked one of my clients, if you find yourself in the church, would you smoke? He said no. And I asked him why. He said that's a sacred place. And I asked him, so why would you want to smoke when you are home? He said, because I feel very safe smoking at home. And I said, that is a problem. So if you can't smoke in the church and you find yourself smoking at home, then there's a problem. It means that you have respect for the church and you don't have respect for your space. So protective factor is also need to understand that there are spaces that can actually make this individual want to continue using this substance. So we also have precipitating factor and we have the other factors too that can actually predispose these individuals to using this substance.
All right. Godwin, thank you very much. We have messages coming in from our viewers so that we also feel the pulse of the regular Nigerian, the ordinary Nigerian out there. Akeju Olagbaju says, is it not high time we name and shame these barons? I guess that's addressed to the NDLEA. And from Olugbenga, NDLEA can't do the job alone. Nigerians saw the good job they are doing. Uniformed personnel are smoking in our community in Abule Egba area of Lagos State. Okay, and finally from John Ade, some of these drugs are easily abused, or some of these drugs that are easily abused are supposed to be prescription drugs, but pharmacies sell them to even minors. And please, government should conduct random drug tests for government staff and see how many are on drugs. A lot of them take drugs. Okay, Yere, you have some? All
right, some messages that we have here. This one says the last drug control master plan was 2015 to 2019. You correct that. It's coming from one of our viewers. Is NDLEA working to review it to guide its operations? So you correct that impression. It's coming from Akeju Olagbaju. Another one says, good day, presenter. Nigerians don't like drugs and so on. How will we stop it? Do we think it is that possible? And if you people catch anyone, I mean, talking about the traffickers now, you guys should try to get to the root of it, the supplier and its branches. That's coming from Kandi in Abuja.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd just like to correct the impression by the claim by one of the messages. That's that the last National Drug Control Master Plan was 2015 to 2019. No, actually we have one that will run out this year. That's 2021 to 2025. That's the one we are running on at the moment, and there have been efforts ongoing at the moment on the next plan, which is 2026 to 2030. That is on way, but we still have one that the current one will elapse at the end of, will expire at the end of this year.
So is it not high time you name and shame barons?
Yeah, of course, we've never really hidden. I mean, it's something every week, every Sunday especially, we try to put some of these strategic interventions or interdictions in a statement, and we put them out there for the public. We don't, like I said, the recent one that we identify, even though the man is still on the run, but we already have his details and we already gave his name, so he can only hide for a while, but then because we're closing on him already, we have everything that we need to have on him. So we don't hide them. Indeed, we bring them out, and one that has been on the run for more than 17 years, that was sending drugs to South Korea from here. We recently got him, and where he was in his hideout somewhere in along Lasu Road in Lagos. He's been on the run for more than 17 years. We eventually got him, and we never hit that. So
what about the one that talked about security operators using drugs? Are you doing anything about that?
I said smoking anyway.
Smoking, yes. Those were the issue of. Don't forget, these are users, and one of the things, and I like one of the points raised in one of the messages. Indeed, again, like Shooks also alluded to. The drug integrity test is something we are taking seriously, but because it's a medical thing, we can't come out and say we have conducted drug tests for ABC. No. But indeed, I'll tell you that quite a lot of government institutions, government agencies, parastatals, ministries, they are adopting this in their recruitment processes, in their promotion exercises, including the military, the paramilitary, the police. They are doing all of this. That is going on, definitely. Okay. And we're also glad that even the private sector, we are in a position to know because we do this in partnership with them. And even the private institutions, I know quite a number of universities, both public and private today, that it's part of their policy. As a fresh student, you have to undergo drug integrity test. As a returning student, meaning that you go on break, you are coming back, you have to undergo that before they allow you to. Yes, in between. So this drive, we just need to, like all of us have agreed in here, and like Mr. President said yesterday, we have to make this a movement. We have to take advantage of every sphere of influence that we have control over to make sure that we push this.
All right, many thanks, Femi. I'd like to get to Barrister Kamadu as we begin to round up the conversation. Speak about rehabilitation. Some people have said once you get into it, it's difficult to get out. I mean, the structure supporting rehabilitation in the country seems to be weak. Is that something we can do? Or do you think what we have on ground at the moment is good enough to get people who want to get out of drugs to get out safely?
Thank you so very much for this good question, because it takes us back to this year's day, International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. The DIP says the evidence is clear. Invest in prevention. Please, I want to urge Nigerians, especially those of them that are not into drugs yet, or those of them that are contemplating giving it a shot. Prevention is key. The journey out of drug abuse is torturous. It's torturous. My brother here is mainstream rehabilitation person. It's not something anybody would want to experience at all.
Absolutely.
And you can never be restored fully. That is the truth. And those of them that are lucky that you go into it and then you're rehabilitated, you will find that oftentimes they suffer relapse. I mean, so it's a vicious cycle. That's why I very much love the theme for this year's International Day Against Drug Abuse and illicit trafficking, which emphasizes the need for prevention. Prevention is key. Whatever we can do as a people to stop our young people, to stop our adult population from trying it at all.
Because when you taste it, the feeling probably never leaves you.
I am telling you. Because rehabilitation, like I said, rehabilitation, we just said rehabilitation. Like I said, it's a torturous journey. And again, if you look at our society today, you will agree with me. Like I said, the structures are weak. How many rehabilitation centers do we have in this country? Government, the NDLEA director is there, he will tell you. Their own facilities are inadequate. The private ones we have, they are very few. So we don't have enough rehabilitation facilities in this country to even support people who are willing to return from drug use.
So prevention is key. But Godwin, what challenges do you face the most in providing effective rehabilitation? Is it funding, stigma, facilities, or perhaps policy gaps?
Okay. So first of all, let me just align with his view, right? So rehabilitation is really important for individuals that uses substance, and so there are three categories of people who come in for rehabilitation services. So the first set is the individuals who have informed mindset, right? We call them individuals with full insight. So you have individuals with partial insight, and you have individuals with no insight at all. And so we have a change model that we use to assess these individuals. And you have the pre-contemplation stage, you have the contemplation stage, you have the preparation stage, you have the stage where you maintain, right? So these individuals with no informed mindset that come in for rehabilitation services, it practically makes it impossible for them to see the need for them to change. And we often tell them that sobriety is a lifelong journey. So long as you're on that path of sobriety, it's a lifelong journey. So when they get to that stage of maintenance, they feel that they've gotten to that final stage of change. And so they don't need to pay mind to their triggers and warning signs. And before you know, it leads to a lapse or a relapse. A lapse is a single use, and a relapse is the continuous use. And meanwhile, there are stages of relapse. So you have the emotional stage, you have the mental stage, and you have the physical stage. And before an individual relapses, he has to pass through the emotional stage, the mental stage, and the physical stage. And so for some individuals, they don't have to pass through those stages. They just start from the mental stage and end up at the physical stage. So in terms of rehabilitation services, I would say funding, it's really important because most individuals who come in for treatment lack that finances, and we don't have enough support to be able to treat those individuals. Like I said, most of the cases we've had are drug-induced psychosis, and these individuals come in, behave in an erratic way, and you could see that really the family members really need finances. No family member has any savings for treatment of substance use. So it's something that it creates concern, and you could see that the family also show love and empathy to these individuals that are using substance. Like I said earlier, addiction is hinged on the compulsive and the impulsive use of it. And so these individuals, most of them are willing to change. They are willing to stop. But because they have used this substance for a very long period of time, they have developed a behavioral pattern. And so when you develop a behavioral pattern, for you to change or to stop that addictive behavior becomes a problem. And that is where we as psychologists come in. We use the cognitive behavioral therapy to make you understand that changing this behavior might take time, but it's possible. And we keep saying that rehabilitation process is also possible, and it's really, really important for individuals that uses substance. And the fact that you had a relapse does not mean that you're not making progress. Relapse is also part of the progress too.
We'll take a break.
Yeah.
We'll take a break so that when we return, we'll continue with the conversation. I'll need you to tell me at some point how much policy, for instance, policy on smoking, can help in all of this. But let's take a break, and the conversation continues after this time out. All right. Thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria, where we've been discussing drug abuse. It's a whole lot that we've been talking about. But before we left, Godwin, who is a clinical psychologist, was telling us about the triggers, the tendencies. But I was asking, policy, where are we with policy? Are we getting it right? Or are there policies we need to tweak or bring into place just to ensure that, we limit the gateway, the access to abuse? Okay.
Yes, I agree with the fact that we need to tweak the policies, and I'll come from this standpoint of view. Over time, I've had interactions with clients that tells me that you have suggested that substance use is wrong, but how about the illicit substances that I can easily get, say alcohol, cigarettes? How about these substances that I can just get? So what happens to me when I get out of this place and I get to see them? So they pose as a trigger. And those are the gateway substances that we often entreat on, that these are the gateway substances that can actually predispose you into using other substances. So I think we need to tweak some of those policies to see how we can begin to regulate the access to, say, cigarettes, and also access to alcohol.
Especially in public places.
In public places, truly. Because these individuals just have access to these substances that they tag as illicit substances. And it will even interest you to know that cigarette is one of the hardest substances to stop. They can try to stop other substances, but they say, you see this cigarette, I can't stop it because of the nicotine rush in it. And alcohol too. It's another substance in as much as people don't want to see alcohol as a substance, but alcohol also is a substance too. It acts as a stimulant at first. Then when you begin to take it over time, it begins to cause, it's a depressant. Alcohol is actually a depressant.
Many thanks, Godwin. Let's get to Femi now. I'd like to find out what you think the motivation for women in this business is. I am particularly worried because these days when you do your parade, you know, of course, it's always on the NTA, so I get to see it. And most times, women are used as couriers, right? They may not really be the main people behind the deal, but they tend to, the last case you just mentioned, the fibroid case, it's possible that she was actually going for fibroid, but probably, you know, co-opted somehow, whatever. But speak to us, what is the motivation for women? Because, I mean, in the past, when you hear drugs and all of that, you want to think, oh, it's for men and all. But these days, I mean, with the people that you have arrested, what is the push?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's the same thing. The greed and the urge to want to make money at all costs. That's also, that's different from the fact that a number of them are vulnerable because of economic reasons. Do you understand? Some other social factors like marriage issues, and so they become vulnerable. Yes. So, and when you are at your vulnerable moment, you seek, I mean, one common thing, one common narrative, one common factor in the course of their interview, that is, we call it interview instead of interrogation now. It's usually, I need money to do this, I have no money, maybe divorce, or no husband around, no caring husband, and so I approached Mr. A, and Mr. A said, well, I can link you up to somebody that can help you, and then the person that the so-called helper turned out to be, okay, well, what I can do is I can send you on this trip to India, to Europe. I'll give this to deliver to somebody. If you deliver it successfully, then you are paid 2 million, 3 million naira. For somebody that is vulnerable, it's easy.
Tempting.
Yeah, tempting, because you just needed to get out of. But then it's not a justification. Really.
Agreed. Now, that's for the traffickers. For the youths, what is the motivation for women? Because that's another, I mean, we hear that the numbers are rising.
They are, like I said earlier, there are different motivations for different individuals. So basically, from my own experience, I would say influence. Yeah, so they just get easily influenced. And it's also interesting to know that when women get hooked to substance, it affects them, their function as who they are as women. So for based on experience, I'll say it's the influence from environment and other factors too.
All right, Chuksa Kamadu, when we talk, you know, stakeholder collaboration, for instance, are civil society groups like yours getting enough support in terms of, you know, the wherewithal to do the job that you do, or the policy backing to scale your impact?
Well, so far we're on our own. Mine is Center for Ethical Rebate amongst Nigerian youths is 24 years old, and I can say publicly that we have never received any form of grant for the past 24 years.
How do you survive?
We do that from our pocket.
What of
It's part
institutional
the-
support?
Well, institutional support, yes. NDLA has been very, very supportive. NAFDAC has been very, very supportive. Nigerian police has been very, very supportive. Like when we started a nationwide campaign against drug abuse in 2022, we needed to gain access into secondary schools in the FCT because we couldn't walk into any secondary school and start engaging with the students and all of that. We needed to get back to NDLA. NDA needed to give us a letter to the FCT, Secondary Education Management Board, and all of that. So if it's about such institutional support, I can assure you NDLA is always there for us. NAFDAC same, Nigerian police same. And then to a large extent, I can also say publicly that the Nigerian Armed Forces are always ready to associate with what we're doing.
All right, many thanks. But I'd like you to also speak to us about the early warning signs, what you think parents should look out for. Because we already established that, I mean, from the home, we can curb this. So how do you know that your child is getting influenced?
Well, it's just like a male-female relationship. When a partner begins to cheat, you will find that the one that is cheating begins to withdraw somewhat. Oftentimes, you find that child withdrawing because he or she is becoming progressively detached from that family. The drug use has become his or her family and all of that. So when a child begins to withdraw, tend to stay on their own too often, it should bother you. When a child also begins to feed irregularly, go for your food, and that child says, "Oh, mommy, I'm not hungry," please be very, very worried.
Or even overeating.
Or starts to overeat. Be very, very worried. Parents should be a lot more alert these days, because we're also dealing with very smart children. Children of these days are very, very smart. They are actually smarter than we are and all of that. So that means we have to redouble our efforts in terms of vigilance to always ensure. And then when your child also begins to bring home strange faces as friends and all of that, people that are not used to be his or her friend, you should also worry. Then it's also look out for the language, your child's language, your child's mode of communication. By the time you begin to find that a lot more slangs readily come out from that child's mouth, you should be very, very careful, because children of these days, they can be amongst us and converse very, very effectively without any of us speaking what they are saying, because they have pet words for almost everything.
Codes.
They have codes. So, and it's amongst them. We are not with them and all of that. And the fact that, their world is different from ours. We had families, we had communities. Their own family and their own communities is their
smartphones.
Their smartphones.
The sleep
So
pattern.
it is that smartphone that has greater influence on their behavior, on their attitudes, on their likes, than the family.
But at what age should a child have access to smartphoons?
That's a topic for another day. That's
because when you say smartphones, children shouldn't.
That conversation, we're not ready for it. But the
In fact,
conversation
this smartphone also leads to other addiction too. FOMO, fear of missing out. And so they just get hooked on just scrolling on social media and to just get influenced by what they see and what they interact with. Yeah.
What did you just call that, FOMO?
FOMO, fear of missing out.
So you know the slangs too. All right. Because I'm hearing that for the first time.
To them, so you just have to.
I'm hearing that for the first time. We need to wrap up this conversation. It's almost time to go on Good Morning Nigeria. So we'd like to hear your thoughts, your final thoughts on this conversation. Femi, we'd like to begin with you. I mean, we need to just win this war. It's killing our economy, killing our people, killing families, killing everything. So in your own view, what will be your recommendations going forward?
Yeah, the thing is, like you said, the consequences are just too heavy, not only on the individual, on the family members, the society, the community, and the nation, on our GDP, because we are talking of our productive age bracket. That's our youth. So, and going forward, like we said, like we all of us here had agreed in our comments and remarks that indeed we need everybody to get involved in this thing. It's not a time for us to push responsibility. It's a time for us to own it and begin to push for everything possible to ensure that we get our young people, we prevent them from going into substance abuse, because the idea of coming out of it is not a walk in the park, like we've all said. It's not you only know when you go into it. You can't determine, you can't say when you come out of it. And a lot of people don't survive it.
In the NDLEA bill, is there policy, kind of policy shift in it, embedded in that?
Well, definitely it has to do with increased funding to ensure that, because at the moment we have, it's not something for only government. Government alone cannot handle this. Government alone cannot even
tighter
fund
control
it.
can help.
Control
Tighter control.
of what?
You know, the use of tendencies, cigarettes, alcohol, a bit.
Yeah, don't forget that the demand itself, we have to cut down on the demand. That's why the theme of this year is addressing. I mean, people without demand, the supply will be very weak. Yes. So the moment the demand area is taken care of, then the supply would naturally
automatically see.
1 minute for you, Jukes, please.
I would like to speak to the Nigerian youth. And my message is simple. First, I would want to ask, why would you choose to be a liability to the society rather than being an asset? Because the choice is really yours as a young person. Then, please, the Nigerian youth, there is no excuse good enough for drug use and drug abuse. That you're lonely is not good enough. That your parents don't give you attention is not good enough. That it's peer pressure is not good enough.
Or that your girlfriend abandons you.
Or your girlfriend abandons you, or your boyfriend abandons you. It's not good enough. Because what it's at stake is your life, your precious life. And I dare say it's irreplaceable.
All right, Jukes, thank you very much. Godwin, your final word in a minute.
So it's simple. Recovery is possible. And if you're finding it very difficult to quit substance, you can contact us. We have a partnership with NDLE and we'll attend to you swiftly. Yeah, so recovery is possible.
All right, thank you very much for joining us for this conversation. Femi Babafemi, Director of Media and Advocacy at the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Many thanks, and keep up the good work, and we hope we get to see more sentences also. Chuks Akamadu, lawyer and president of the Center for Ethical Rebirth among Nigerian Youths. Many thanks, and please continue what you're doing, hoping that the grants will come very soon. And Godwin Alechenu, General Manager and Clinical Psychologist at V-Gada Rehabilitation Center. It was also nice to have you. I was hoping you would round off with some slangs so that those who understand the slangs can get the message better. All right, so that's good morning. That's good morning, Nigeria, this Friday. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Ian Ray John. Level up to the NTA.
And I'm Victor, so we'll see you again on Monday.